We got to be careful with this, what's the old saying, warm-up curse.
Whilst I will watch the fight, I'm not going to go and see it. I'm tired of Tyson and his for want of a better expression, than a glorified sparring session.
Only seen one clip of Frank and it's not much to phone about.
It'd be very disrespectful to use Deontay Wilder as a stepping stone. To be in the ring with him twice and obviously we know what happened. I really struggle to see past Fabio Wardley now.
So someone's getting battered in submission or knocked out.
But if that fight gets really hard early on, Daniel Dubois will be okay. But, and there's always a but, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, I have always looked at when a fighter's failed the drug test, you look at the gym.
But if there was no test involved, there's no way I would risk my life against someone with that history. If you're second in boxing, you're last. You know, that's how it goes. Yep. You know, I'm well aware of that.
Then the TKV performance, going into this, I'm thinking, I'm not liking the signs I'm seeing with Frazer.
Well, I think, you know, after the TKV fight, what can't speak, can't lie, change was needed. I want big fights, but at the same time, big fights without some accolades. You know, you want to look back on your career and you want to have something to say to the kids, look, your dad won this and dad won that. Even if I didn't perform in that fight, Spencer, never mind win or lose, if I didn't perform, I'd be having a really difficult conversation with myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to episode 169 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan, Spencer Oliver and Paul Smith, sponsored by DAZN, the global home of boxing. We're joined in the studio today by very popular British heavyweight Frazer Clarke. Nice to see you, Fraze. Have we got the mild-mannered, amenable Frazer? Have we got the slightly sparky one that was pushing back against Spencer and Gareth A. Davis that we saw a couple of weeks ago?
No, it's the fight. The fight's been done and dusted now, so
right.
you've got the amicable Frazer.
Everybody all right?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
I hear you were at an awards ceremony last night, Spencer, photobombing an award that you had nothing to do with. All right?
So, excuse me, mate.
And being an ambassador for one that we didn't win.
Excuse me, mate. You didn't come to the awards, so I rightly, as an integral part of White and Jordan, the boxing hour, where I presented you with all your knowledge in the sport of boxing. I think it was only right that I went up there, held the trophy, apologised for Mr. Jordan not turning up. Yeah, but it was a good night.
For this show, we got a bronze.
We got a bronze.
Nothing wrong with a bronze, let me tell you that.
No,
There you go.
But we are in the mentality, we don't come here for fucking bronzes, Frazer. We come here to win. So we've got the Ben Whittaker mentality, which is we're going to toss our bronze medal away. And I think the main reason why we even got on the roster is because Paul's on the show.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I didn't even hear that we got a bronze because at that stage, I'd
certainly weren't at the bar buying drinks, Spencer, that's for sure. Let's get into the show. The announcement was probably the best kept secret, but it's been one that's been waited for some time, a fight that's been in the making for 10 years in lots of people's minds. Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, signed, sealed and agreed in its broadest terms.
Yeah.
Likely to take place or suggested taking place in the final quarter of this year, Spence. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, so Anthony Joshua signed a 2-fight deal, I think, with Turki Al-Sheikh. The first one, obviously, July the 25th. That will be out in Saudi Arabia. Christian Penga is the guy. We'll get into him in a bit. And then we get the fight with Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Yeah, I'm hearing October, November time. Wembley Stadium is the favoured choice of venue. And there's no rematch clause, by the way, in this.
No?
No.
OK. Let's hear from Frank Warren speaking earlier on talkSPORT with myself and Jim.
Tyson signed up for it months ago. I already told you that we've been waiting for AJ and he's now done it. So the fight will be on and it'll be on sometime, I think, in October by the looks of it. So that's really where we are. But AJ, you know, that's been the hold up. He wanted to fight back. As you know, he fought Jake Paul in his last fight, which he won. And that's really what it's all about. But you know, I genuinely do not see the fight going on until October. No, and it's got to be about the availability also of a venue. The fight will go on this year, 100%.
I mean, British fight fans, Frank, would love it to be here, wouldn't they? You know that, we know that.
Well, of course they would, but you know, the money, they're not the, you know, at the end of the day, the money these guys are getting, it's got to go where the Saudis want it to go, because they're in a driving seat as far as the finances are concerned for this fight. I believe it will go on in the UK, though. Yeah, I think Wembley is favourite for it.
Yeah. But without Ring Magazine, this fight wouldn't happen, Frank, would it?
No, it would have happened. Again, I didn't like what he said in there about all the backwards and forwards. We agreed this fight, you know, long before Turkey got involved, and the fight, and Prince Khalid, who's in Saudi, who put Joshua's fight on, it was agreed with him, but he never came up with the contracts. The fight was agreed, and at that time we were looking to do the fight over in the UK. It would have happened, but it wouldn't have happened for the money they're getting now. They're getting fortunes. I mean, unbelievable money. Of course, it would have happened. These fights happen.
Yeah, but Frank, can you say that with a straight face that it would have happened? You and Eddie Hearn.
I just said it.
But Frank, you and Eddie Hearn spent years trying to make this fight, and you couldn't do it. We needed the Saudis and Turkey's arrival to make it happen.
At that time, they were on different channels. We were on BT, and he was on Sky.
So how has Turkey Al Sheikh managed to do it, and you and Hearn couldn't?
Because he's paid them lots of money, and the fight, and it is what it is. He's paid money, you know, far bigger purses than we could pay for the fight, because he has the help of his country, and is it the e-sport people with the thing that's going on there, so he can do that.
Bang. Fraze, can we actually see this fight happening in October, given the fact you've got Anthony fighting in July? And can you envisage it really only being on UK soil? Is that important for the stature of the fight and for the fight fans that have supported these two fighters for so long?
This might sound extreme. I think it's important for the country. You know, the state of the country at the minute, I think it could be one of the best things that's happened to the country. I think it's going to way exceed just boxing.
Why? Two fighters past their prime that are really in it on a race to the bank, when we've got big fights coming up. I know they're not the same stature.
It's stature. That's the exact word.
It's the
stature.
spectacle.
It's the spectacle. You know, it's the occasion. We've seen all the big stadium fights now, and they've been great. You know, you get the whole day, the whole weekend sort of revolves around these shows. Now, this one, I imagine, will go above and beyond in every aspect. So I'll look forward to it. It is late. Kell Brook and Amir Khan was late, but it delivered, and it was a fantastic fight, a fantastic occasion. This is that, just tenfold. So,
but do you see it happening in October? I mean, you've got Anthony fighting on July the 25th.
Yeah.
Which effectively, we're not expecting a difficult fight, but let's just price in the fact it's still a heavyweight contender in front of him, and he might have a more difficult evening than we anticipate. Can you see him fighting in October, 2.5 months later?
Yeah, I can. I think if he had it his way, and if I had it my way, I'd get it in August. The longer this fight has to go on, the more chance there is of one of these guys pulling a shoulder, getting a cut, getting injured. I'd like it to use that momentum from this fight in when is this one?
July 25th.
July 25th.
July. I'd like him to use that momentum. July. He's done it before. 6-8 weeks later.
Really? Fight camps for? I mean, normally they want much longer periods of time when you're preparing for
fight. But does he need that? Does he need that? The stage he's at now, does he need that? I don't believe so.
He used that as a bit
He'd
of a
use it,
camp talk,
literally.
Well, the interesting thing will be, I mean, look, first and foremost, I mean, you hear varying things about the nature of this contract and what's been signed and agreed for. And I've got a broad understanding it's been signed and agreed for to be fought by the end of September.
Yeah.
And that there's a desire to move it into October because Anthony's now decided to fight in July. Now, the next thing you'll probably hear is if it's not going to be October and it needs to be further in the year because maybe Anthony needs a longer camp than we're suggesting, Fury's going to come over the top and say, well, I don't want to fight in November because I've been out of the ring since March. I've got an 8-month waiting situation. All of a sudden, Fury's going to want another fight in the mix, which I understand is part of the conversation.
I think that's part of the conversation right now. Spencer Brown's, been vocal about that and said, listen, Tyson Fury wants another run out, possibly in July as well, if Anthony Joshua's going to have this one in July. But we got to be careful with this, the old, what's the old saying? The old warm-up curse. You know, when fighters have warm-ups, like these guys at that stage of their career...
But we've all accepted, Spence, haven't we? Sorry to cut across you, but we've all accepted that there's no way Anthony Joshua can come into a fight against Tyson Fury, having had a warm-up against Jake Paul, having had the challenges of his personal circumstances in December and the tragedy that goes with that. It would be remiss of him not to have a warm-up fight. So you're in that space anyway.
Totally agree, Simon.
But the interesting thing about this fight is I look at fights, and we're going to discuss this later on in the show. My view on this fight is it's an inevitability that it has to happen. What it actually means, it means little to me, because whilst I whilst I will watch the fight, I'm not going to go and see it. I'm tired of Tyson and his I'm not going to give him more courage than I absolutely have to. I accept it, but the fact he doesn't want to talk to us and engage with us because he doesn't like criticism, I think is crap. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite and go to this fight. The fight in of itself, it's a spectacle. I look at the Dubois-Wardley fight, which we're going to discuss later on the show, and go, that's got jeopardy. Yeah. That's got a world title on it. That hasn't got a big zero in front of it or zeros in front of it about money. This is a land grab economically for two fighters that are past their best, that are really going to capitalise on the opportunity of the nostalgia trip that we've seen with Conor Benn and Chris Eubank, and they're going to monetise it, and we're going to pay it.
But listen, but they...
Or Turkey's going to pay it.
But they've earned that, haven't they? Because they've been dominant. They've been dominant forces over the last decade or so, and whether they're past their best or not past their best, which they both are.
It's a spectacle.
You look at it and you go, Daniel Dubois versus Fabio Wardley is for your boxing fan. This transcends outside of your boxing fan. You know, with Anthony Joshua's story, Tyson Fury's story, what they've touched. So it is, as a spectacle, a much bigger fight.
It's a spectacle.
So, you know, and so I think they both deserve that fight.
Do you think? I mean, can we see any way? I mean, Frank was getting a little bit bristly in the conversation about how this fight was made, and the observation was put to him by Jim that there's no way this fight couldn't have been made without Turkey. And do we concur with that view? I mean, like, there's a part of me that thinks the market size is the market size. Whatever you can get is whatever you can get. If people want to pay X amount of money for a pay-per-view and X amount of people will see it, that's the scale of the fight, that's what you get. Yeah. But the Saudis have been good and bad because they've given the extra additional revenue to make fights happen, but they've also ultimately increase the demand in fighters' minds about what they shouldn't get paid, should or shouldn't get paid. Yeah. Would this fight have ever happened, in your view, Paul, without Turkey? Because for years, Eddie and Frank weren't able to get themselves together to make this fight. What's your take on that?
It's a good question. In this modern-day climate, no, it wouldn't have happened without Turkey. Before Turkey and the Saudi money had come in, you probably would have got it made, but they'd both be taking a hell of a lot less money because the money wouldn't be there in the fights. The money is there in the fights because of Turkey and because of GN and the Saudi setup and Riyadh season. That's what has made us as fans and people in boxing see these great fights happen. You're stronger than me saying you're not going to go and you're not going to, because I will be a sucker for it. I will be watching.
I'm going to watch it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be about it. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to be like the ones with Conor Benn and Chris Eubank.
It is one that I want to see sort of happen, but again, like you just said there, like the previous fights made with the Pacquiao, Brook, Khan, etc., it's again 5 years too late for me, but I still will be very interested, intrigued. And when you just said then, Spencer, it's only a 2-fight deal, AJ Sands, I'm very surprised in that because you would expect it to be a 3-1 with the rematch.
That's what it is.
If that's what it is, then you know what, great. It's a bit refreshing at the moment to not see rematch.
Irrespective of whether they're signed for one fight, if the fight generates enough interest and is an evenly balanced fight, there'll be another one. This fight that Anthony Joshua is having on the 25th against Christian Prenga, Paul. Yeah. You know, let's be honest, this doesn't feel like much of a fight on paper. Is it little more, for want of a better expression, than a glorified sparring session? I mean, we saw him against Jake Paul. Is this a little... I mean, it's an upgrade from that, I would suspect.
Yeah, it's an upgrade.
But other than that...
It's not too much of an upgrade with the opponent. But again, what happened with the accident, what happened with his friends tragically passing away and the rebuild that needs to happen for Anthony mentally and physically, I think... Basically, look at it this way, that's part of the Fury build-up, that this is part of his camp. This is probably a training camp within a training camp to get to Fury, but you'd have to do it under the lights with the small gloves on, with the threat of a live opponent, albeit a very limited one in there. And I've only seen one clip of Prenga, and it's not much to phone about at all, but it's understandable.
It's interesting because they might have created a bit of a problem for themselves with Moses, because Moses was supposed to fight on that night. And now you've got Moses potentially fighting on July the 25th with Anthony Joshua on a pay-per-view, and DAZN have announced it, so they've created their own problems, which maybe George has got to fix. When you look at the fact that Anthony Joshua fought someone very early, Gary Cornish, who's got a similar record to Christian Prenga, and knocked him out in one round, Frazer, what material benefit is Anthony Joshua going to get if he goes into this fight, does the exact same thing as he did against someone like Gary Cornish, knocks him out in one round? What does that achieve for him being ring ready for whatever Tyson Fury turns up in October, November, or whenever they fight?
I'm not so sure. It's obviously it's all down to being ring ready, but I think fight week, you know, just going through the process again, because the Jake Paul fight, for me, from the outside looking in, it just looked like a bit of a jolly up for Joshua and the lads, to be honest. So I feel like this will be, I think it'll be a lot more locked in and switched on, go through the normal fight week procedures and just sort of get himself involved with that sort of pressure of having a fight. And listen, whether we like the opponent or not, he's a live heavyweight who's been boxing, he's got a good record. So I'm not so sure that the fight is the most important thing. That's the training camp, the prep, and hopefully he can just carry that momentum, go into the Fury camp and then to the Fury fight week. Because at the minute it'll be a bit alien to him. Because like I say, that Jake Paul fight was a jolly one, wasn't it?
Similar to what Fury will be doing now, if the fight happens sooner rather than later. He's going to get all that momentum from them good 12 rounds against Makhmudov. And again, I was impressed with Fury compared to what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting as much as what I saw on the night. And after watching that, if AJ can come through this next one and look good in that as well, which, you know, by all accounts he should do, then it's going to build the fight up.
I don't think it's the physical challenges for AJ in this fight.
Psychological.
It's the psychological damage he's been through with what's happened with his friends, etc. And if he comes through that and he doesn't see the ghosts and he doesn't, and you know, mentally he's right, then we're on.
Well, let me repackage that and say to you that he hasn't, in my view. I mean, you know I have my views. And I respect Anthony Joshua, of course I do, because I can't do what you guys do, so it never comes from a position of disrespect. But I called out Anthony Joshua from the beginning, saying Jermaine Franklin, Robert Helenius, Otto Wallin and Francis Ngannou were not a blueprint to fight a live one, and so it proved against Daniel Dubois. The last proper fight he had was against Otto Wallin. Is it a case, and we're hearing a lot of noise about the suggestion it was going to be Deontay Wilder, is there more of an inclination in the mind's eye of those that are managing Anthony Joshua that they don't trust to put him in against a potential jeopardy fight and risk the opportunity that the Fury situation provides?
I'm not so sure, because, I mean, was it a jeopardy fight? When you look at Deontay Wilder's recent performances, you go, that's probably, especially with the name that comes with that as well, you go, that's for me, the ideal opponent.
Then why wouldn't they do that?
You know, well, listen, that's the business side.
Jeopardy.
More money in Wilder.
It's always jeopardy with Deontay Wilder.
Much more money in Wilder. But, you know, so, when you're looking at it from a business side of it, that's why I say this is all about the psychological challenges for Anthony Joshua, going in with this guy. Because, look, I've looked at Penga on YouTube, I've watched him in a couple of fights, and he has zero chance of beating Anthony Joshua. The record's very impressive, 20 KOs out of his 20 victories, I get all that. You know, but there's levels to the game.
I
think for
agree.
AJ...
I agree a lot, Spence.
Yeah.
But even to knock 20 fellas out off the street, you've got to be able to punch, I think.
Especially
when they don't want to be knocked out. To knock someone out who's trying the best to not be knocked out makes it more difficult. So I think he has that power, and therefore he will always be a slim chance. But I think you're right with the rest. It is a relatively slim chance.
Absolutely.
It's probably a shot to not.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded the call myself, but Deontay Wilder, listen, we know the last few performances, but it'd be very disrespectful to use Deontay Wilder as a stepping stone for me. You know, the jeopardy would be huge, because you talk about records and you talk about what we've seen do in the past. The power is the last thing to go, so they say.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's very dangerous.
Listen,
myself.
I totally agree with that, but we're talking about warm-up fights and preparation for Tyson Fury, because this is the one where they're the fights that people will remember 10 years down the line.
So who would you want him in with then?
Huh?
If you had your choice and you were guiding Anthony Joshua, besides bearing your head up his arse, who would you want him to be fighting? Would you rather fight Wilder? You'd rather have him fight Wilder?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Earlier on, I mentioned that Fury had potentially a conundrum in his mind if this fight goes later on in the year about having another opponent. He made it clear after the Makhmudov fight that he only wanted to fight Joshua next. The delightful Spencer Brown had something to say about that. Let's listen to him.
Tyson's been out of the ring now he was out of the ring for 2 years, just jumped back in. We'll probably want another fight before the AJ fight, a proper warm-up fight, and then we're all ready to go. We've signed, we're ready to rock and roll. You know, we've got an exclusive partnership with Netflix. As you can see, Tyson's doing it home with the Furies. He's, you know, his last fight was done by Netflix, and I would have thought all his fights would be done by Netflix. He's got a great partnership with them, a phenomenal company. You know, couldn't be happier really. So we're just waiting for Anthony to sign, Eddie Earn to sign. Will it be with DAZN? I haven't got a clue. Or DAZN will have a part of it. I haven't got a clue. They have got an exclusive partnership with them. So we'll wait and see on that one, but we're ready to go. It would be nice for Tyson to have one more fight before we step in with the big, and Anthony wants one more fight. So, you know, if it's in July, we won't be able to do anything till October, November, December. So it's going to have to happen quite rapidly. I've seen some snippets this week, of, you know, of Eddie saying that, you know, we were control of our situation, so are we. It's really all down to His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh. You know, we'd like to see it at Wembley. You know, it's availability of all these places and you know, the date of what we're going to do it in and when we're going to do it, the month that we're going to do it. Obviously, it can't be too cold, but we've done it before. We've been in Tottenham in middle of November when it was freezing. Could it be anywhere else? Yeah, it could. It could be anywhere, couldn't it?
Now, I know you were paying careful attention to what Spencer Morgan was saying, Spence. Do you see...
Spencer Brown.
Spencer Morgan's brother, Piers Morgan's son. Why am I bringing him into it for? Spencer Brown. Do you
I was paying more attention than you, clearly.
Clearly. Smart ass. Yeah. Do you see Fury having another fight? I mean, the longer it goes on, if they can make the fight in September and the beginning of October, then you can see it. Because the gap between when Tyson's fought and when the fight gets made is less. But when it starts getting into months after that, then Tyson is likely to want another fight, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, look, do I see Tyson Fury having another fight? I don't think I do. I think that Anthony Joshua obviously has this one, July 25th. Fury's now talking about having a run out again in July as well. I mean, it's a possibility, but if they, you know, they're all hinting there. Frank Warren we had on talkSPORT, didn't we? Spencer Brown was saying there, you know, they don't want it to go too late into the year, obviously because they want that stadium fight. Wembley Stadium as well.
I reckon that's what contracts say. That's what I reckon is more prevalent.
You're hearing September, I'm hearing October. So what I'm saying is, weather's still OK then. So they won't be having... I don't think he'll have another run out. Makhmudov, he's just had 12 rounds with.
I just don't think you can have a fight. I don't think you can have a heavyweight fight, whoever the opponent is, at the end of July and run out again in September.
Yeah, I was in the studio upstairs while you were on with Jim, while Frank was on the line. Listening to Frank and listening to that VT there from Spencer, that to me tells them that there's not going to be another fight for Fury. They just want to push AJ to make them. Yeah. They're going to threaten with the other fight, but we're talking about Fury who's just had 16-month layoff, come back and still look good. Yeah. He doesn't need the other fight. The more fights that either of these two have, the more chance it's going to take.
But you know, the problem with these two is a pissing competition, because they're going to be in a situation where who's the governor in the situation, and that one person dictating to the other is not going to happen. You saw that, and rightly so from Anthony, by the way. He didn't need to be engaged with Tyson Fury, and he was quite right to sit back. I don't agree with the fact that he's the landlord, but that's not the point. The fact is that he didn't have to be drawn into a conversation just because Tyson Fury decided. And like we said the other day, oh, Tyson, you've been the one that's been retired for 16 months. Hang on a second, giving everybody the hurry up. When you look at this fight, Frazer, Fury-Joshua, where does your mind head towards? How do you see the fight going, and who do you think wins?
I think it's difficult at this second because I can't judge Anthony off the Jake Paul fight, his last time in action. I think Fury looked well the other night. But if I'm going, I've always gone with AJ in this fight, stylistically.
Really?
I always have, until Fury recently has looked, like I say, the comeback fight the other day, I think he looked well.
But do you think he was more hittable, you know, against Makhmudov? Yeah, he did. He had moments in that fight. Yeah, and I get the ring rust, etc., being out of the ring so long, but he is more hittable these days. The legs have slowed a bit. He's more hittable, and that gives AJ probably a better chance than when you felt that AJ would win before.
But is AJ a little bit gun-shy compared to what we're talking about, you know, at one time? Do you know what I mean? So I think it swings and roundabouts. Yeah. The honest answer is the same as a lot of people will be. It's who turns up on that particular one night. Do you know what I mean? But I think Fury will go in as a favourite, but I think it will definitely aid Joshua to go in as an underdog.
I was always the opposite. For years, when they were both in the peak, in the prime, I always backed Fury. I always thought Fury had more about him. Now, I'm not so sure now. And again, it's a multitude of factors that come into play.
Even though you were
one of them mainly being age. Even though I was impressed with the performance, as you say, there was a couple of vulnerabilities there. I think Fury's still got something left, which I was happy about, because I proved myself wrong in a way, but I felt that he didn't after the Ngannou performance. But he showed on the night with Makhmudov that there's still stuff there. There's still something there with Joshua. As you say, he hasn't looked good in a competitive one. With the Dubois fight, it wasn't good at all.
No.
If that man turns up against Fury, then I think Fury wins and wins well. but it's still a very, very intriguing fight for me because of where they both are in the stage.
It's a battle of who's diminished the most, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, let's stick with heavyweights, Fraser, and move you on to a fight that you will have a vested interest, like all of us have, which is, you know, Daniel Dubois fighting Fabio Wardley for the WBO heavyweights. The battle of two heavyweights that never actually won their belts in the ring, notwithstanding that they beat credible opponents to get the belts when they were elevated. This is an intriguing fight. We've been raving about it. It's a proper fight. This has the potential of being one of the best heavyweight fights on these shores for a long time, doesn't it?
I love the fight. I think both fighters will go into it full of confidence as well. Even though Daniel Dubois is coming off that defeat to Usyk, I'm not sure it would affect him as much as it would affect other fighters.
No,
knowing him as a character. Fabio Wardley, he probably feel like he's just floating on a cloud right now. I think everything in the last little few months he touches turns to gold. He's just been fantastic. He's improved an awful lot. And when I look at him now, I see the confidence that sort of radiates off him. Even though he didn't win the title in the ring,
He beat Joe Parker.
but he beat Joe Parker, which is basically a world title fight, isn't it? So as a boxing fan, and obviously everyone loves the heavyweights, you couldn't ask for much more than this fight. And like I said, I think we're all in for a treat because I don't know.
Who are you leaning towards?
I'm gonna say, after being in the ring with him twice, and obviously we know what happened, I really struggle to see past Fabio Wardley now at the minute with anyone really, because he seems to find a way, and I've seen vulnerabilities from Daniel in the past. So I think my head sort of says, and my heart actually, I like Fabio, so I think it sort of leans that way. But Daniel Dubois, I've said this a million times, other than David Price, Daniel Dubois is the second hardest puncher I've ever been in the ring with. So he's always got a chance.
You know, you mentioned Dubois, and you mentioned his weaknesses or his frailties. I've also seen them. Have you seen any in Wardley? Is there anything that Dubois can expose in Wardley? I think it's a very, very close fight, by the way.
I think Fabio will know himself. He only has to look at his face after most of the fights. You know, he's marked up a lot. I think his defence has had to get better or needed to get better. But I do think off the Hooney fight and the Parker fight, I'm seeing the development of Fabio Wardley as a boxer. I think he's improving in most departments, to be honest. So I think he has bridged that gap, whereas Daniel, I've always thought, has got very solid basics, but maybe the emotion of the situation sort of might overcome him sometimes.
Fraser, you've been in with Fabio a couple of times now. Did you ever think that he was going to go on and win a world title? I mean, the barnstorming that you had with the first one, the second one obviously ended the way that it did. Did you think that he was going to progress?
Honestly, no. I thought he was good. I thought he was good, and I thought just the Joe Parker fight. I thought there was a few levels in it. But he shocked me, you know, even in that for the first round, the way he came out and the way he was boxing with Joseph Parker. I didn't think he could bridge that gap, but you know, I follow him on social media and I see enough and know enough people in the game. He trains very, very hard, very, very good. So you know what? All credit to him. He's defied the odds in many ways, hasn't he?
When it comes to Daniel, the question that always comes up, some of it unfairly, some of it I think with a little bit of justification, I think bringing it into the equation about Daniel's heart and propensity to bite down on the gum shields, because he's going to get dragged into potentially a dogfight with Fabio. When we look at it, all of us, from the broadest terms, you know, the Joe Joyce fight, I was at that Joe Joyce fight. I think Daniel ran out of ideas because he couldn't put a dent in Joe, but I think the orbital socket was the problem and his corner should have done him a favour rather than he get the mantra of being potentially lacking the heart. We've seen him in against Usyk where the heart comes into question twice again. In the first fight where he doesn't jump on Usyk, but also he kind of accepts his fate when Usyk steps up the gas. And in the second fight where Paul and I have discussed it about, you know, not letting his hands go in the first round where he gets Usyk in a position and doesn't do it, which means psychologically clearly wasn't in the right frame of mind to go and do the task that was put in front of him. And secondly, when he gets knocked down and he walks across the ring and looks past the fighter that's just knocked him down. Do we, as a consensus, think that he's got what it's going to take? Because Fabio is going to drag him, I think, into a situation. This fight is going to end up with someone getting knocked out or battered in submission. Both of them have got a 95% knockout rate, right? So someone's getting battered in submission or knocked out. Has Daniel got the stickability to go, right, now it gets ugly. I'm not being confounded by technique like Usyk did. I'm being dragged into a dogfight. Do we think he's got the minerals to go through it?
history hasn't told us that so far, but I think that with Daniel Dubois, his big opportunity comes in those first 6 rounds. If he establishes that jab, that underestimated jab, by the way, that jab that he throws is like a right hand, and Daniel will roll the dice early. He'll go out there and take the fight to Fabio Wardley. Stylistically, Fabio is in front of him. He won't want to take a backward step. He wants to command that centre of the ring. So it gives Daniel a huge opportunity.
He's not able, is he, Fabio? He's not technically able to, is he?
Gives him a huge opportunity, you know, and I think that it's a fight of two halves, this one, for sure. You can't write off Daniel Dubois. He has got a great chance in this fight because of how heavy-handed he is. Frazer said it himself.
I agree, and I think early on is when, if that fight gets really hard early on, Daniel Dubois will be okay. And this is the thing. I'm not saying he hasn't got heart. I'm not saying he's a quitter. It wasn't in that exact words. I've watched what I've watched, and I didn't like what I saw. That's just my opinion. But both of those fights were starting to get hard later on. And I think that's the mental thing in the gyms when it gets hard, when you're getting pushed to do things you don't really want to do. When it gets really hard and you're tired and you're fatigued, then that starts to come out. And I think early on, if it's a dogfight, I think he'll put his chin down and swing and go with anyone. I think he'll have that balls and that determination to dig in early on. It's later on in the fight when it gets hard. So I do think it could be over early for Dubois as well, by the way. I'm still a bit on the fence with this fight. I haven't really...
That's why it's the best heavyweight fight out there right now.
It's a very, very good fight.
Can I just say that the heart thing, the Joe Jaws fight was very early on for him. I believe it was a little bit too soon for him to be in that fight, to be honest. Being stopped by Alexander Usyk is one of them things. You know, he's the best in the world. But other than that, I've also seen some grittiness from Daniel Dubois myself. The Jarrell Miller fight, I think he was gritty. The Urgovic fight, I think he was well under the cosh. So I believe that Daniel is one of them fighters that it just depends which version turns up. Maybe not physically, but definitely mentally.
I think it's the word quit is the wrong word because they're all gladiators. I think it's what pain threshold these fighters have got, where the checkout point is for these fighters, you know, and I think that's what it is. Some people go to some insane dark place, you know, they're a rare breed, but every fighter has their...
And listen, but I'm really not trying to put him down saying this. He's getting a bit of a better, more friendly, likeable following now because he's just being himself. He's very socially awkward. He's not the one who's going to have, like, riveting conversations and encapsulate audiences. He is what he is, but that as a result might alter the way he thinks as well. When things get hard, you know what? I'm not saying he's a quitter. It's never been that. It's just what I've seen in fights when it gets really hard and he's got up and walked back to his corner when he probably could have got up on that 8 and go again. But listen, he is what he is, and it's hard not to like the fella, and he can fight. And this is a very
because they were dispelled. I mean, these observations were dispelled in the fights against Baby Miller and against Filip Hrgovic, and they reawakened again with the Usyk fight and the manner in which he seemed to be able to get across the ring and walk across the ring and look at his father and still be compos mentis. I mean, do we really want to see someone in a terrible state? But notwithstanding that was the conversation. And I think it's also something that Fabio is using to his advantage because he said it. He said it in an interview, and he'll say it again, I suspect, when we see him next week.
He's clever. Fabio, he's very clever with his words. But I will say this: the mental warfare. But I will say with Daniel, what you have to remember as well, we've seen the maturity, and I think with maturity, especially in a heavyweight. He's still... How old is Daniel now? He's still like...
28, 29 and a half.
28, and he's now been through the mill. I believe you can only get better from these experiences, which he's had personally, because I've been through it myself.
And working with Don Charles, mate, let me tell you, like, Don works a lot on the psychological stuff with him, you know, on his mindset. We know he's got the physicality.
When I've seen that,
but Don has brought his personality out a little bit.
And that's the big benefit for Daniel, is that the way he's wired, with all due respect, he won't carry losses the way others do, because it goes out of his mind and he moves on to the next thing. So the losses to Usyk will not be as affecting him as it might affect other fighters. We were due, Frazer, to be talking about Tony Yoka versus Lawrence Okolie this week, which was a fight I quite liked. I've quite liked to see Tony Yoka because obviously there's lots of potential there. There was lots of talk about his camp, about redemption opportunities. Lawrence is a mixed bag, and we all like Lawrence, but now he's got himself into a situation which none of us foresaw. I mean, you're a campmate of his. Have you spoken to him since this situation?
Yeah, this morning.
Go ahead. Can you enlighten us on anything?
Yeah, you know, I've lived with Lawrence for the last 8-10 weeks, I've seen the work that he's put in, and it's been undone by a bit of negligence, I believe. I can only tell you what I see and what I believe. I believe he's an honest, true, gritty fighter who still wants to change his life. Even though he's already done that, I believe he still has the mentality of the kid that worked in McDonald's and the first time I met him when he came up to GB with a pair of ASIC trainers on with holes in them and a little bag with not much on it. I still believe he has that mentality. But I do believe with his experience that he's been silly. He's been a bit negligent because we've all been around it.
Yeah.
We've been involved with these testing pools, and he should know better. So this just seems to me like a very costly mistake from a guy that had the world at his feet in terms of his opportunities. He was there or thereabouts. You know, his plans was to go in and destroy Tony Yoka.
Absolutely.
And then move on to bigger and better things.
Well, look, I mean, the findings are still to come, so it's no purpose ruminating on it. But we did have a discussion last week about the state of boxing. Have a listen to this phrase, and we'll come back to you after that. You said a few years ago, Spence, I think in 2023, that you reckoned, by your estimation, that 70% of the current boxers are doping.
Yeah.
Now, is that something you still subscribe to? And if that's the case, then we should be horrified in this sport. I mean, it's not unique to sport. We've just seen Yannick Sinner, the tennis player, test for drugs. We've just seen Paul Pogba, an elite footballer.
That's a heavy statement. That's a heavy statement.
It's a big statement.
That's a heavy statement.
Yeah, but listen.
I mean, with no backup.
It's a reality. There's no backup.
I hope it's not true.
There's no backup. I'm just saying, this is what I'm saying. I go, like, when you're looking at it and the people that are getting popped all the time, you go, that is the reality, Naz.
It's like tearing down the fighters, 70% of them, whoever they are, tearing them down, saying, you guys do this. Well, we don't know this.
No,
and you're saying, but that's my opinion.
The 70% of the...
you ain't got anything to back that.
I know I haven't, but that's what I say to you. Again, I'm just saying...
It's a high amount.
No, all right, it's high. We can't pinpoint a number.
I did hear the most of the best fighters that took over the sport from once I'd finished, the biggest names, I heard that a lot of them was doing it.
That's what I'm talking about.
I heard a lot of them was doing it. But you know what? Even then, I find it hard to accuse anyone.
For Christ's sakes, Naz, make your mind up. Either it is or it isn't. I mean, when you listen to Spencer's observations and you look at the state of the nation and the fighters getting popped and the percentage of fighters, do you agree that there's a massive problem in the sport still?
So Spence just said to me off air, we spoke, and 70% of fighters, he said, at elite level. Now, I want to talk about the whole 70%. Remember, the lads that I'm in the gym with, some of them that are on the small halls and still working through, or the guys that go to work and have to train and they're still professional boxers, I don't think it applies to that. I don't
totally agree.
You know, I think there's so many good people, and I've not been at that elite level around some of them guys, but I've never seen no one myself personally do it. So I think you're heavy on that number, the 70%.
I agree with what you're saying. I do agree with that, and I agree that this is an isolated incident. I think it was from an injury that was being treated. Yeah. I agree totally. But, and there's always a but, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, I have always looked at when a fighter's failed the drug test, you look at the gym, and that's what's going to happen, whether you like it or not. And it's going to happen, and it's not fair on the gym, it's not fair on the lads that are there, it's not fair on your coach, it's not fair on anyone there, but that will happen because that's what we all do as fighters.
That's natural.
I know this is isolated, by the way, I'm not accusing anyone.
That's natural, because I can only just speak about Lawrence's situation. Like, I'm in the gym with him every day, I'm around everyone in that gym, and I just know 100% it would never happen through them doors in that gym.
I agree.
It would never, ever be spoke about. So this, I think, is as much shock for everyone in our gym as it is to everyone outside, you know?
I agree totally. That's why I was saying I was at that gym. I've trained with Joe for most of my career, and there's not a chance on earth that anything like that would happen. That's what makes this frustrating with Lawrence Okoli.
Right.
It's some form of treatment for an injury, and something's being taken or administered that shouldn't have been in the system.
Fraser, we see Baby Miller win at the weekend. Threw over 1,000 punches, by the way. Quite incredible. Yeah. And he's failed numerous tests.
Favours.
Yeah.
Would you consider fighting someone that's failed numerous tests before in the past?
I wouldn't want to fight him. I wouldn't want to fight him personally because Numerous tests. Numerous tests.
Numerous tests.
Then he goes in and throws over 1,000 punches. I've been lost so much weight looking like.
Can I just explain quickly? Can I just explain quickly? Featherweights are very rare to throw over 1,000. Flyweights very rare for a heavyweight to throw over 1,000 punches.
No, the guy that boxed my friend, the guy that boxed Galaya fight that got popped, that little cheating, him. Yeah. He threw over 1,000 punches. There's a big thing made of it. Oh my God, he threw this many punches. Lo and behold, it ends up getting popped. Baby Miller has then gone and done that as a heavyweight. I'm not accusing him. I'm just saying. But it is what it is.
Can I ask you about your testing in your last fight again? Not towards you, but like I know when I was fighting, every now and then I'd get UK Anti to open up my door 6 in the morning, I have 6 in the morning, or they'd turn up to the gym when I had big fights. But apart from that, I don't feel like I was tested enough, and I never took a performance enhancing drug or a recreational drug while I was fighting at all. What was your testing like for your previous fight?
Well, for considering that mine wasn't a title fight, I got tested, I'd say, in that whole camp, between 5 and 8 times. Good. I can't give you an exact thing, but I can remember one week, they was at the gym. Yeah. And then the same week, this is UK Open. And then Varda was at the next day. Blood and urine. Good. And then on the night of the fight, had urine as I walked into the building. Yeah. Then I had blood and urine after. We were 2 different bodies. So I think the testing is the best place it can be now. You know, I don't think you can get away with it.
There's not enough money to actually test.
Well, that's what we were talking about last week.
Adequately, it is improving. It definitely is improving. I agree.
And that's when I was looking at UK testing a couple of years ago, and one of the sports that needed massively more investment into it, because one of the sports that really should be, any combat sport should be at the front for testing finances, because it's the sports that puts people most at risk. Footballers are not at risk. They're at risk of cheating the opposition by being more powerful, but they're not at risk of killing somebody. Exactly. So these sports need to be looked at. Can I just pick you up on something, Frazer? And I know that this is me being a little bit facetious. Are you seriously telling me that if you were offered to fight Baby Miller on an undercard of a big fight, which was a big opportunity for you, you'd turn it down?
Depending on the testing. If I knew he was being tested throughout by UK Anti-Doping and Varda, and he agreed to do that randomly from 12 weeks before and 3 weeks after the fight, so it'd be probably like a 4-month thing. Yeah. Then I'd fight him. Sure. But if there was no test involved, there's no way I would risk my life against someone with that history.
But it's also a moral compass that you guys have got to observe, which is the fact is, it's one thing saying that you want to get out of the sport. It's another thing then being prepared to, I mean, it's easy for me to say, it's another thing then being prepared to jump in with the ring because commercially it makes sense. You either want it out or you don't want it out.
As a fighter, I fight anyone. Yeah. I fight any man in the world on a level playing field.
This is what's tough.
Because I've got a family, I've got kids. I don't meddle with that. Do you know what I mean?
This is what's tough. Some of the best fighters in the world have had adverse findings in the tests. So, like Canelo, if you're all them out there,
Tyson,
do I still support them? Do I still watch them? Do I still admire them? Yeah, because we as fighters or pundits or boxing media, whatever you want to call it, you're sort of guilty of, well, that wasn't a steroid, it wasn't a complete fail of his test or whatever, or he didn't get banned for this long. And it sometimes, and we need to have a stance on it where we eradicate out the sport. And if you're found guilty, now listen, again, it might even be Lawrence. He hasn't took something specifically thinking, I'm now going to cheat. He's had an injury, he's been taking something that's probably been in his system when he's been tested, which was out of competition or whatever, however way it was.
Paul, I think the argument with Lawrence and the situation is, mate, like, you know, that negligence, like, you know, how can you be so naive when you've got this, like, you know, when we're taking supplements, you're looking on the list to see if it's a do or if it's a don't.
And
what I'm saying is, you're going through an injury.
Look what happened to him.
You can't.
But that was recreational.
Exactly. But even still, he was negligent. It was in a system. I felt for him so much. But they slammed him with a heavy ban when it wasn't performance.
But that's also because Liam denied it. But that's also because Liam denied it as well, didn't he, initially? I mean, we were talking last week, and we don't need to labour this point too much, but there's the desire to get more investment into testing. One of the things that Turkey, Al Sheikh and people like that can do is make it more available and more reliable in terms of the fighters that they are prepared to put on their bills, and start that as a blueprint. It also probably needs a unified approach to testing, and it also probably needs, with due respect, I'm not a big fan of Baby Millers, don't admire him at all. He's failed so many drugs tests that he shouldn't be back in the ring now, should he?
And also, I believe, if we're talking about funding for these sort of things, education, it needs to be involved. Like, remember, a lot of boxers that I know are unprivileged, uneducated kids, you know, like, some people don't know their arse from their elbow.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think some of these, you can almost be tripped up, you know, in a few of these things. I mean, for me, because I've been doing it for so long, because I was on Team GB, I was very lucky. We had educational meetings every few months about this subject in particular. And it was so strongly put on you to go and to listen and to learn.
But Fraser, when we talk about the enhancement, say, this is, you know, the difficult thing is proving the motivation behind it, because that's the one thing you can't prove, the intent. We'd like to suggest that Lawrence Coley, without ruminating on it, has made a mistake. Other people would suggest that it wasn't a mistake, there was an enhancement opportunity there. We'll never know. But isn't it the case that despite the fact that the fighters may come from a background where they can't find their asses with a funnel because they're young kids that don't know their way around and they'll learn it when they're older, the trainers most of the time do know better? And is it a case that most of the time when a fighter's taking PEDs or taking enhancement products, it's likely that the trainer is going to be aware of that? And shouldn't it be, if that's the case, and if I'm right in that, shouldn't the trainers suffer a consequence as well? Because they have the education, they have the awareness, they are the grown up in the room to some extent.
Yeah, but I don't believe it. I believe after being in boxing for so long, you are a man and you do walk on your own 2 feet. Anything that goes into you
It's your responsibility.
Is your responsibility. You know, you have that self.
But I am right that trainers would know, though, wouldn't they? Most of the trainers would know. Is that, am I right in that?
I don't know, you know. I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm going to disagree with that. If you have a fighter that comes in, if you go into your next camp and you're taking some form, listen, I don't even know the difference of them to start naming names, but you were taking a steroid that could boost your blood in your system, your red blood cells, so all of a sudden you got well more energy, and all of a sudden you're in week 11 of your training camp with 11 weeks to go, but you're firing like you was when you were 5 weeks out. That trainer's going to know. He's going to be thinking, what have you been doing in your break, lad? But if it's a treatment for an injury to try and fix an injury, it's not really going to be performance enhancing. It's just going to help your recovery. But it's still on the ban list. That's what I'm getting at.
On the flip side of that, though, you go, when a trainer's never going to say to the fighter, if he's firing on all cylinders after, and you go, there's an amazing improvement in this kid's stamina. And the trainer's not going to turn around and go, you ain't popping, are you, mate, when a kid's just about to come up? So it's sort of like, it's a difficult situation.
I'm not talking about this situation or Joe or Lawrence, by the way. I think in general, I think if you're a good trainer and you've been with the fighter for a while, I think you would know.
Yeah, but I've been with Lawrence, though, for this camp. This is just me using him as an example.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, he looked well. He was losing weight. He was getting fitter week by week. But I never once looked at him and thought, oh my God, he can't be doing that just or I've never once looked at him and said that, do you know what I mean? Or
from what we're hearing and what we've been told and the evidence that we've been told,
have you ever had that thought process?
It's an injury, so it wouldn't be that.
Some of when I was boxing on Team GB and we'd go to different tournaments and Olympics and Worlds, there was a team at London 2012, and I'd seen all them fighters in tournaments before that, and they were the good fighters. And then when they got to the Olympics, so many of their fighters looked different and was different. So I have seen it in the amateurs, not so much as since I've been pro, but in the amateurs, I've 100% seen it.
Can I ask you just a quick question about fighters that get popped, you know, for performance-enhancing drugs, and whether it's a mistake, they've all got an excuse for whatever it is. They get done again, second time. Don't you think that they should just have the book thrown at them? I mean, you go then you're talking about not being educated in certain situations and some of them being green and naive to situations. You go, well, how can you be that again then? So you go to, like, that's where I'm at with it. I just go, how can they be serial repeaters, some of these fighters, get done 2 times, 3 times, 4 times?
But Spence, that's where we're coming from with the unified sanction. That's why we're saying that ultimately it is one and done, unified across all the testing agencies, and that is the end of the discussion.
That's right.
Let's move on and talk about you, Fraser. Justice Hooney, I mean, what do you take? I mean, some would say there's an argument to say you could take a lot from that fight. What did you take from that fight? It's a loss at the end of the day,
Yeah.
but what did you take from it?
I'm a dead realist when it comes to my own career, Simon, and if you're second in boxing, you're last. You know, that's how it goes.
Yep.
You know, I'm well aware of that. And then if I look at my career, that's the second loss on a bounce. And I understand why. There was a lot of noise before that fight because, and it wasn't unfair noise because my performance before that against Jamie was well under par, so I understood everything. That's why I didn't ever hit back at anyone. I can take the criticism when it's deserved. And I don't like losing. But obviously, even speaking to Spencer and Paul this morning, and you know, you see a lot of the stuff online, and I feel like my stock has risen since that performance. I'm just an honest fighter that goes in there and does his best, and I know that working with Joe Gallagher has really, really enhanced me, not as just as a boxer, but an understanding of the game. I feel like he's become like a teacher and mentor to me. So, and he's put that self-belief back into me because it was lost. After the Fabio Wardley 2 fight, as much as I didn't want to admit it, you know, the injury and stuff, my belief and everything was probably a little bit down. So I feel like it's still a loss, and I'm not taking no credit for the loss, but we're definitely stepping in the right direction. And I know the opportunities aren't going to always come, but, you know, I'd like to think the powers that be can see that was a really close fight. And look, everyone had me. The bookies had me to be chinned in a few rounds in that fight. Everyone had me as a loser going into it. But I know what I'm capable of.
We didn't, did we? I mean, I think we spoke about it. I thought it was a perfect fight for you because I don't think Justice Hooney hits as hard as some of the opponents you've been in with. I mean, Frazer touched upon it about his stock rising, Paul. I know he's put you behind the 8 ball to say it while you're sitting next to him. Do you agree?
No, I absolutely do. I said on the show.
Yeah.
I was one. Now, again, I can say this in front of him now, and you know it's not from a place of malice. It's always from a place of respect. I've known you a long, long time. I think we're friends. I after the second Wardley fight, I picked you for the first Wardley fight, and the second one, I thought you might have had enough to just get it over the line.
Right.
Yeah.
Devastating finish. Yeah. One of them things that just happens. That's boxing. After that, then the TKV performance. Going into this, I'm thinking, I'm not liking the signs I'm seeing with Frazer. Yeah, no. And as the first to admit it, after this fight, after watching that, I can't wait to see you fight again. I think you've improved massively moving up to Joe. And I said before we came on here, I was having a laugh and joke with my missus on the couch. I said, I bet you, Joe, I know Joe inside out. I bet you Joe's got on watching Rocky 3 and taking him back to the start, the old gym, learning how to go back to the beginning and do it. And then he said on his interview, we watched Rocky 3 last night after rain, and I spat my tea out laughing, but it was perfect for him.
It works.
It's a rebuild. You'll have walked in that gym, you'll have seen hungry fighters all around you, you'll have seen a different method of training where you're going to be absolutely super fit being up there. And I think it was a great move for you. You were slimmer, you were lighter, you were letting your hands go a lot more. You certainly didn't look gun shy or aged in there. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
When Spencer came to the gym,
did rise.
When Spencer came to the gym, and he's seen the gym, and it was like, it took me back, because the first day I walked in that gym, I seen some of the young fighters, Mikey Talon and Hugh Malone. These are guys that, Mikey's fought on a few big shows, but some of the other guys that have been boxing on the small hall shows, the way that they were training was mesmerising me. They were working so hard, and I thought, oh my God, I've had ample opportunity. I'm boxing on TV regularly, been on massive shows, and I thought, oh my God, you've been getting it so wrong.
Your standards.
Frazer, talk to me about your decision to leave Angel Fernandez and team up with Joe Gallagher, and talk to us about the camp and how it went.
Well, I think, you know, after the TKV fight, what can't speak, can't lie, change was needed. You know, I speak to my family. My father's a big influence on me, and when I looked at him, he's always proud of me, but I think he could see that I'd let myself down. And knowing myself, I looked at myself and thought, you've really dropped the ball there, mate. You've really dropped the ball. And I was really, really disappointed. So I don't straight away, first of all, I hold the blame with me. I don't go straight to my trainer. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm the one that lost the fight. But what I did always want was a bit more experience. And I thought to myself, I'm going to have a look around. And I know people like say this all the time, but I spoke to Joe Gallagher. He said, come up. So I went up like the first week of January. And after being in the gym for about half an hour, and the way that he just said, basically, get in, get on with your work. Basically, join in. And I left the gym so tired. And he told me a few home truths in that session as well. It was like, this is where I need to be. It's probably not where you want to be. It's not comfortable, but you need to be there.
He's an old school, take no type of guy, Joe, isn't he? Some fighters need that.
Honestly, I went there, I lost my British title to James DeGale and went up there. And I'll never forget it. I was with Buddy McGearth and Matthew Macklin. I was with Georgie Vaughan. I was with Billy Graham with Matthew Macklin. And when I got there, Macklin come over to me and he was covered in sweat. He'd just been doing the circuit, I think, and he said, I thought I was fit till I came here, Smig. And he walked away and I thought, I've seen you fit. I've worked with you alongside you. And then within 2 weeks, I was probably fitter after 2 or 3 weeks of training with Joe than I was for my previous fight. And that's no disrespect to any other trainer. It's different there. And then on the next bag, I had Anthony Crolla, British champion, John Murray, European champion, Matthew Macklin, European champion. All good fighters in the gym, and I'm standing and I've just lost my belt. I think I've got to up my game here to fit in the sessions.
Exactly where
it's going to make you better. I knew as soon as you went to Joe, it was going to be a really good move. Yeah, and the proof was in the pudding.
So Spence, Fraze, what's the plan then? What's the end game? You know, there's nothing wrong with leaving the sport with an Olympic bronze medal. Some would say, is that all you've got? A lot of people would dream of getting an Olympic bronze medal. You came into the professional game to achieve something more. The back of 2 defeats, we're talking about the lessons to be learnt from the Hooney opportunity that was missed, but notwithstanding that, it was part of a rebuild for you. Where is the direction of travel for you? Where is the end game? Where are you going?
So where I'm at now is, Simon, that has really, really whet the appetite for big fights, because the way that Hooney's being talked about now is right up there in the world rankings, and I suppose he's trying to put himself in that little gateway for a world title, and I was one round short. So I want big fights. I want titles, of course. I mean, for a long time I was really fixated on the British title. I've boxed out 3 times and it hasn't come. So eventually the goalposts have to move. You have to look past it. I want big fights, but at the same time, big fights without some accolades. You want to look back on your career and you want to have something to say to the kids, look, your dad won this and dad won that. So I'm sure there's opportunities out there, with my promoter and my manager, they have a job now I want to be in title fights and go in the right direction. I mean, as bad as this sounds, there's that many titles in boxing now. Surely I can pick up one of them. Do
you know what? The heavyweight division is like, with the landscape of the heavyweight division, you're always just one win away from that big fight. And like, you come out with so much credibility off the Justice Hooney loss, because we were all saying before that if he loses, it's going to be difficult to see where he goes, how he picks it up. But because of the performance, you put your name still in the mix.
Even if I didn't perform in that fight, Spence, never mind win or lose, if I didn't perform, I'd be having a really difficult conversation with
absolutely.
myself. Now, after boxing since 11 years old, I'd be having a really difficult conversation with myself. But the people that matter that I've spoke to have told me that was a massive improvement, and that was one camp.
Yeah,
that was one camp with Joe. They said to me, whatever you do not go and blow up now. Don't go and do all the bad things. I had a week away with missing the kids. I was back in the gym on Monday. I'll be back there tomorrow. And I'm back there Friday.
Brilliant.
So, we just hope the opportunity is coming. And that's up to Ben Shalom. That's up to, that's his job now for them guys, a boxer, because that's who I'm with. It's their job to put me in the right positions, and hopefully they can bring the big fights, and it's my job again. I have to deliver.
I think you did deliver in that fight, and as I say, I'm glad to hear your attitude that you're going to get back in there. The heavyweight division in Britain alone, never mind worldwide, the top 15, top 20, there's some good names there. The top 30 in the world is really good names. So there is fights there. Speaking of big fights, one of your old opponents, Dave Allen, obviously he boxed him a long time ago. He's fighting on May the 18th against Filip Ergovic. It's a big ask, isn't it? What do you think on the fight yourself?
He needs nothing short of a miracle. Unless Filip Ergovic is tossing it off right now and not really giving Dave a second thought, which at the stage that Filip Ergovic is at, I don't believe he'll be doing that. I believe he'll realise he's a little bit away from the huge fights again. And
why is he taking this fight, Ergovic? I mean, Dave Allen never.
It's a run out. This isn't it?
But he really fancies it, Dave. I mean, he is the first person to put himself down. He's either doing a wonderful bout of kidology. Or he really fancies it, because he's sitting in this studio, and I've never heard him speak this way. I don't know if you boys have, to correct me. This is a done deal as far as he's concerned. He's going to beat Ergovic.
Fighters need to have that, though, Simon.
But he didn't have that against Makhmudov,
No,
did he?
because he's always been that type of guy where he hasn't really shown too much character, too much self-belief. He believes in himself, but we're talking about levels of the game here. We're talking about world-class fighters now.
I really like Dave. We had a bit of ups and downs after our own fight with each other, but I really like him.
Great guy.
And he's a good personality.
Yeah.
But overnight, you don't all of a sudden improve your ring IQ, your hand position, in the terms of going up to this level. So the kidology, I think, is a big thing for him. And he's looking in good shape. I keep following him. He's looking in great shape. Is that going to be enough to derail a world-level fighter in Filip Hrgović? All I can tell you is Dave has a chance. If Filip Hrgović gets tired and leans on, Dave Allen, when he clubs you inside, he can whack, he can really whack. So if Hrgović switches off or gives him an opportunity,
he'll take it.
I just hope. I'd love to say he will take it. If he's
he didn't against Matt Rudolph, did he? Yeah.
No, if he's in the right headspace, he has to take it.
How big an upset would it be?
Oh, massive. Biggest upset in probably in years in boxing.
Talking about great shapes, I mean, we saw your nemesis, your old nemesis, Jamie TKV, going against Richard Riakporhe. I mean, that was a convincing destruction from the first round to the ultimate conclusion. I mean, how impressed were you with Richard Riakporhe and how forceful an opportunity do you think he's going to be in the heavyweight division?
Richard's a beast. I've said this for a long time. Richard has probably lacked, which I think he's getting more, a bit of self-belief. That thing of not gun-shy, but I've always said, Richard, if he hits you enough times, you fall over. Again, I put him up there with the bracket with the Dubois, the David Prices. He really is that heavy-handed. Even as a cruiserweight, when I used to spar him, he has the freakish one-punch power, which not too many have. I think you're blessed with it. I think you're born with it. And he really has that. I was impressed with him, and I think Richard, as a human being, is an impressive human being,
He's definitely blessed with the physique, isn't he?
He looks
the part, he's got the frame.
He's got the frame.
He believes in himself.
But I remember talking to his a friend of his that looks after him and looks after his mentoring, sat next to him in the Glowacki fight up at Manchester. And the big thing they were talking about was his mental believing in himself. Believing in himself. And then, of course, then we saw the performance against CBS, and then it wasn't the believing in himself, it was the weight. And so now he's at heavyweight. Do you think
we could see the best of him?
You think he'd make a dent?
We could see the best of him. And I do. We talk about the names and obviously the different bracket. We've got your AJs, your Furies. And then obviously coming up to that now, and Usyk, I put not under that in terms of skill. We've got Moses. We have to admit, I think Moses is there. Then maybe Fabio's and Daniel's in that bracket as well. Richard slots in just below at the minute. I think with more fights at heavyweight, I think is a real force. And while you always have that ability to knock someone out in heavyweight division, you're always a threat to everyone.
You might not have seen this because you were fighting, but on the night he was saying, and the weigh-in he was saying, explaining how bad he struggled at the weight. And you're going to see a different fighter, and we did.
And we saw it.
And so I've got to take that as face value because we did.
Before we go, we should have a little tilt at what is a great fight coming up this weekend, which is Zurdo Ramirez versus David Benavidez. How do you think this one plays out, Spence?
Yeah, great fight live on DAZN. And Benavidez for me, I think that extra edge in speed, work rate.
Even coming up to cruiser?
Yeah, I do, I just think that's going to give him the edge, actually, because I think Ramirez is a little bit slow and ponderous. Yeah, he's got a good, steady output. But
do you think he was slow and ponderous against CBS?
Yeah, well...
First round he was, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. He grows into it, but I think Benavidez is a faster starter, and I think he's a better fighter. And I think that we'll find that. Look, it's a great fight. Writing Ramirez off, he's done nothing wrong so far to suggest that, but there's things I've seen in Benavidez that gives me the edge over Ramirez. I just think that he's more of a complete package.
I agree, and I think Ramirez can be lazy at times. I think that might be his downfall.
That's right.
For me, the frame and the size... Listen, Benavidez is technically a big super middleweight moving up to light heavy. He's took that other jump up now. It's a big jump. So it makes it interesting for me.
Who do you pick?
think Benavidez is the better fighter. I do agree with that. I think his fast hands, his combinations and his output will see him over the line. But you can't rule Ramirez out, Zurdo out now because of, as I say, just that size and that jump. And listen, he started off as super middle and light heavy as well, but he's got a huge frame.
It's reminding me, remember when... I feel like it's going to go a little bit. Remember when Canelo jumped up and boxed Kovalev? I think it's got that sort of feel to it. Zurdo's a good fighter. He's a great fighter, in fact. but I just feel like the momentum is very much with Benavidez.
Just an interesting commercial one, Paul. I mean, obviously, I'd like to see your brother Callum fighting David Benavidez, but is it more likely, given the landscape at Zuffa, that there's an opportunity if Benavidez beats Zurdo Ramirez, because Benavidez will fight anybody, to drag him into Zuffa and match him up against Jaya Pataya, and then you've got an opportunity to say the best versus the best?
That could happen.
It's a great shout.
Could happen.
That's why you're sitting in that chair as the business brains of the outfit, isn't it? It's
And
a
I
great
tell you
shout.
what, by the way,
and I tell you what,
what a fight that is, mate.
Opataya is frightening.
He's my
I
favourite.
really rate him.
So is Benavidez.
I was surprised. Yeah,
Absolutely.
But again, I'm saying about whether this frame's going to be big enough for Zurdo Ramirez. It definitely won't be big enough at this stage for Jaya Pataya, in my opinion. But stranger things have happened. We've seen it previously with fighters jumping up weights.
Yeah, but with Benavidez, you know, with it jumping up in weights, that will benefit him because his frame is so big. You just look at him and go, how did you make Superman? How did you make
he boxed a heavyweight in the amateur.
That's what I'm saying. He's a big guy, mate. So I think that's why we're talking about different fights. Someone like Canelo, who went through the weights and he struggled against Kovalev and he was found out against Bivol. You go, he's a small guy, small frame. He's come up from welterweight, so
we'll see, won't we?
Well, we've got a fighter that I know that you admire, Frazer, and we all admire, of course, which is Nui, defending all of his belts on the weekend on DAZN. We should all keep a close eye on that one, right?
Just a top fighter. I watch a lot of his videos and stuff, and when you look at him, he's almost, and even when he fights, he's almost as perfect as a technician as you can get. I was speaking earlier off air. I'd love to see him brought over to these shores, or even in America more. He stays in Japan a lot, but I think, you know, in the right place, he can become one of the superstars of the sport.
Junzo Nakatani, who he's fighting though, is the other superstar of the sport, of them weight divisions. That's a great fight, both 32-0, you know, 27 knockouts we've got with Naoya Inoue, 24 with Nakatani, and you look at that is a brilliant fight. I'm with you, mate. I think Naoya Inoue is pound for pound one of the best, and I think he wins this fight. And stylistically, he might even get the stoppage here because Nakatani's 5'8". He's very tough, comes forward. But Noue's one of the best body punchers, if not the best body puncher out there right now. But that's a fantastic fight.
Absolutely. Right, that's it for episode 169 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan, Spencer Oliver and Paul Smith. Frazer, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next time we're out, which will be next week.